The name of my play is Collaterally Damaged, and it's a play about art, sex, and genocide. And the play was originally conceived before I took a trip to Poland and Germany in the summer of 2005. I went there to trace my mother, the cities where my mom lived during the Holocaust, and one city where she was liberated. And I just went there because I wanted to experience these places where she'd been, and I knew that I was going to write a play about it. And so I came back and proceeded to write this play about her experience and what it means, what the Holocaust means now, especially what this genocide means vis-a-vis genocide that's happened since then in the 20th century, and specifically genocide that's happening now in Darfur. But when I started writing it, I realized that I really needed to tell, in addition to that, the story of my going there and my experience just as a person who's sort of has the legacy of this genocide, how this affected me, and my own part in it, how I am a part of this history as this person who's inherited this and has choices that I can make with regard to what I do with this, baggage, let's say, of victimization. So it sounds very heavy, and the play is actually my style, which is very heavy subject matter, but written as a really broad comedy, believe it or not.
Of course theater had immense social power. Why couldn't it eradicate and even prevent this kind of suffering? Maybe it could. Then again, in the last few years, the world has gotten pretty wacko, despite many lovely theater productions.
Well, I started writing monologues. I grew up in New York, and I started my career as an actress in the 80s, and then I started writing monologues at some point for myself to perform. But it was pretty spontaneous. I just started writing them. I didn't necessarily have any idea what I would do with them. But then pretty soon I started performing, and right away actually when I started doing them, I felt like it was my calling in a way to create my own material and then perform it. It just seemed like a very complete way of realizing an artistic vision. And so I just started from one monologue to stringing monologues together to create plays, and then getting more and more elaborate in terms of storytelling. But then I actually did start to write more traditional plays, let's say, and I got my an MFA in playwriting at Brown, where I didn't do very much solo performance. I really was writing multi-character plays, and when I moved to Washington right after grad school, I was not really committed to going back to doing solo work. I wanted to do multi-character plays. But then, I don't know, something kind of kicked in, and I felt like that's really my first love, that form. And in fact, although I am still interested in and am still writing multi-character pieces, I really feel like this first-person form is something that I want to expand in other directions, specifically publishing, doing different kinds of memoir pieces and essays and stories, autobiographical stories. I feel like there's a lot of I think this form has a lot of different genres, really, that it makes sense in, and the stage is really only one of those. So that's where I am in terms of exploring it.
It's an interesting, lovely, intimate experience, which I suppose could also be a disaster. But I've had great fun working on one-person shows. My first several shows I worked on out of school were one-person shows. I think it's popular, but I agree with Laura that there's so many different versions of a one-person show that to say even just that, none of these shows actually had much in common with each other at all. It's a lot of beginning table work is often sort of conversation between director and frequently with a one-person show, the actress or actor, the performer is also the writer. So that creates even one more level of intimacy that you don't typically get with a show unless you have the playwright there all the time, which you don't usually. So it's good when I think the people get along. I think that's important, and it's so much about the writer-performer's vision that I guess as a director, I feel like I'm the third eye. I'm a sounding board. I'm there to kind of shape a bit and discuss what kind of world of theater this wants to exist in, but otherwise, you know, it's not a major thumbprint from the director on a one-person show, at least in my experience. So yeah.
So I just wanted to piggyback on what Shirley was saying. Last year, when the Fringe was happening, I saw all of these people in the city that I never see. These freaks, you know, and I mean that in the best possible in the best possible way. I mean, I'm a freak, and you know, not that that's the, you know, everyone should be a freak, but I mean, I saw these people who were not your typical button-down Washingtonians, at least when they were there buying tickets. I just saw a lot of people of different stripes, all kinds of alternative types that I hardly see in the city.
Right.
And it seemed like a convergence all of a sudden of this artistic energy. And I wondered where these people had been before and where they were when they weren't fringing.
Well, there seems to be. I've always thought about DC. There are a lot of young people here. There's the whole hipster community up in Northwest, and they're all going to shows. They're all shows being concerts, not theater shows, and up on what the next great restaurant is, or what the next cool thing to do is. And I wondered last year, okay, are people going to embrace Fringe as one of those things? And I felt like that happened. Tons of people that I know who are not in the theater community who, you know, had been to a show at Ford's Theater before coming to something at the Fringe, and they knew that this Fringe was going on, and they openly embraced the experience of who knows what this show is about, who knows if it's going to be any good. I may not get it at all, but it's cool to go to Fringe, so hopefully it's still cool to go to Fringe. Now it's probably totally not cool because I just said that out loud, so yeah, don't let me ruin it for the rest of the city.